There is a name for this. When you see multiple famous people in one family, this is called pedigree collapse. This is something that is starting to become more evident with the internet and us being able to share information on social media platforms like I am right now. It is becoming more evident to us in normal society that these secret societies within the magic circle have been forming alliances through marriages and breeding themselves like dogs, basically. And I will be using that reference a lot, not to be derogatory, but as a way to help you understand what you are looking at.
I got to start breeding.
Please
all the breeders out there.
Wait till you find the right person.
Find the right person.
I'm going to find a breeder, and I'm going to get kids so that mom can love me again.
I'm going to find a breeder, and I'm going to get kids so that mom can love me again.
I know, crazy. But that was one of the other things that gave me that ding, 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 that her family could be part of the Mason.
Problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you.
No, I'm not on medication. I'm on weed though, and I feel hella good.
Welcome back to episode 4, where we go beyond the edge of the world to witness the fall of Hollywood Babylon. I've been on the phone a lot since I've been gone, and me and my mentor have decided that we are going to travel back in time to visit the bloodline of Taylor Swift. And while I was doing the research for this episode, I found a lot of interesting things, a lot of things that made sense to me. If you've been on this channel, you know Patrick, because of his family being a part of this, or at one time was a part of this magic circle in Hollywood. I've mentioned before his great uncle was Henry Bumstead, and he won an Academy Award for the set design of To Kill a Mockingbird. Patrick's family is one of these bloodline families. So I understand the culture in which Taylor Swift is coming from, because my fiance, because of our experience in this culture, I understand some of the things that we are looking at when it comes to this culture. Side note, I also want to point out one of the emails that came out with the Epstein dump. Yes, the Epstein files were released, and there's an entire library. Well, in this library of Epstein files, there is an email between Epstein and a mathematical biologist, one who likes to study evolutionary science. And it's Epstein and him talking about the biology of a creature and trying to understand why a species would have, like ants, would have some reproducing and some not, and how that does not fit the evolutionary model of survival of the fittest. And they were trying to understand how elf colonies, yes, I said elf colonies, ant colonies, and I'm not talking about ants as in insects. I'm talking ants as in Zuni ant people, as in the Hopi ant people. I'm talking about those ant people. They were trying to understand how these groups work and why some of those people, I guess people is what you could call us, yeah. And trying to understand how they're all connected but not, and why some of them have jobs to reproduce and some of them don't. I found the paper, and that'll be its own episode I think I'm gonna have to do to explain more about what he was trying to research and what he was actually trying to, this is sick, breed out of certain people at his little Zorro ranch. He wasn't just trying to spread his seed everywhere. He was trying to cultivate a certain, this sounds sick, breed of human so that he could use them for their abilities, their what we would know in our modern real world, not in as psychic abilities. And there's even more emails where he talks with other people about these psychic abilities. They even held this whole conference in Cuba talking about this, and they were trying to come up with the science to explain these breakaway civilizations. And apparently there's only one alliance left between humans, ants, and elves, probably because they don't want anything to do with us, our culture and their culture. You know what I'm saying? But I just wanted to note that because I know the last episode sounded really crazy at the end, but I'm telling you, we're going to be going over some of the science to explain these breakaway civilizations, these colonies of elves and ant people. Some of us who are in the normal population are part elf, are part of these other breakaway civilizations, whatever their genetics are, because some of them have left the group and integrated into other families and human families. Some of us are hybrids, and that's why we get a lot of these genetic issues like lupus. It's just something that needed to be noted before we start on this journey through Taylor Swift's Bloodline. It's a little preface to where we're going, a little peek behind the curtain. There's science and research that Epstein and some of these scientists he were working with out of Harvard were trying to do to understand what was going on with these breakaway civilizations. Elf people, ant people, and yes, I said ant people, like the ant people from the Zuni and Hopi tribes. There was also a reason why Zorro Ranch was out in New Mexico. It wasn't just because of the nuclear testing. It was also because there's a lot of underground bases that are being run by these breakaway civilizations that have been there, from my understanding, for the last, since before our country was, a lot of them came over from Europe and started their own colonies out in the desert underground, and they were able to build up a lot more technology faster than us. That's our side note. And no, Charlie.
June. This is clearly a play on the iconic 4-letter title, Brat.
It's actually about the Iliad. Yes. I told you before that we were going to be using the Iliad. Well, the reason why the Iliad and why Universal Studios is making the Odyssey movie and why they're always wanting to make movies around the Iliad and the Odyssey and reference back to these myths so much is because these bloodlines believe that they are related to the people that are in these myths and legends.
Like, whoa, I get what's going on here.
Because they believe these myths and legends to be fact. Now, it's not about what you believe. It's not about what is proven by science, archaeology. It's about what they believe. And these people are billionaires. They're the people that own most of Hollywood. They're the people that own a lot of big pharma. They own most of the banks. They run most of the world, basically.
I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls.
Let's have a game, a little lovely game of Roman ping pong, like two civilized senators. Roman ping. You're supposed to say Roman pong. Okay, you serve. I don't mind. I just don't mind.
A lot of them are in governments. A lot of them are royalty. This is what they believe. And it doesn't matter what you believe. It's what they believe. And as soon as you accept that, and I know that sounds harsh, but I had to come to this as well. And as soon as you accept this, that this is reality, the easier it will be for you to understand this culture. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We are going to be using Taylor Swift's Bloodline, and I will be referencing what I know from family as well, to help you understand what we are looking at. Because for a long time, people who aren't part of this culture didn't understand, didn't get it, and a lot of things just got thrown to folklore, urban legend, or just some crazy conspiracy that, you know, someone with a mental illness believes. And let me tell you, I wish it was mental illness, because if it was, I could take a pill, I could see a therapist, I could get in-treatment help for this. But no amount of in-treatment help is going to erase or change what the people who have control of Earth believe. As we go along, I'm also going to be teaching you about these beliefs. I'm going to be explaining where they come from and what you're looking at. We're going to be getting into media magic. Yes, the things that you see in The Simpsons, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about why you see the number 33 everywhere. And we're going to be talking about their rituals. We're also going to be talking about how some of the things that they do pertaining to sacrifices, they actually do wrong. We're going to be talking about something called miasma. It's also known as ritual pollution. It is something that when you do sacrifices the wrong way, and yes, there is a wrong way to do sacrifices. What these elites have been doing, these billionaires, these people in power, they've been actually doing sacrifices wrong. And that's why a lot of times you'll see things like the Kennedy curse. You'll see like the Getty family, you know, and how it seems like everybody just seems all this bad luck, even though they're billionaires. Well, when you're doing shady shit, like burying corpses and using ants to try and cover that up, you're going to end up with some ritual pollution, also known as miasma. It's the inverse of what these families are chasing. A lot of these families are chasing something called kleos. It is the inverse or the opposite of ritual pollution, miasma. It is something that they see as attaching itself to their family name and gives them glory. These families are obsessed with glory. They're obsessed with specifically victory. You will see the word victory pop up a lot of places in Hollywood. You will also see the word laurel or laurels pop up a lot. Thanks, Blake. You kind of gave you and your friend Taylor away there. So to start off our journey to victory, we're going to be starting off with my version of media magic to help us try and break the cycle of ritual pollution that was started many years ago by many of these bloodline families. I know it sounds like I'm attempting to crawl up Mount Everest, but we're gonna do it. Skin in our knees and elbows, inch by inch. Are you ready for this? Because I don't know if you're ready for this, because trigger warning, everything. Let's go to let go of the past and shed this miasma for good.
It's a celestial message. The portal to infinity's wide open.
We will be time traveling down Taylor Swift's paternal bloodline. I looked into her maternal. So the maternal bloodline would be where Marjorie is. We all know the song Marjorie. They seem like a normal, not part of the Magic Circle family out of St. Louis. And the way Marjorie became popular as an opera singer was she won a contest. Now, this is information that we'll dive into on another episode, but that is one of the ways they will identify or used to identify people with certain bloodlines and certain characteristics they were trying to cultivate. Exceptional singing talents is one of them. It runs in the family. See, kind of got an idea of where Taylor gets it from. The other thing that runs on her paternal bloodline family, her father's family, is banking. Banking is big. And when you look at Scott Swift's background, it became way more evident to me what I was looking at. And I was just like, really, Taylor? Your family is one of those bloodline families in the Masons too? You're probably thinking this is one of those, crazy theories, but I promise you, I'm going to show you how I arrived at this answer. So we're going to mainly be looking at the paternal bloodline of Taylor Swift, her dad's family. And she's actually related to quite a few notable people in history from her dad's side of the family. She's related to Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, a bunch of royalty, and she's actually related to Richard Warren, one of the pilgrims who landed on Plymouth Rock. The Mayflower pilgrims, the first Thanksgiving pilgrims. So, yeah, Taylor Swift's kind of like that girl in the Addams Family movie.
I am so glad we invited the Chippewas to join us for this holiday meal. Remember, these savages are our guests.
I know, crazy, but that was one of the other things that gave me that ding, ding, ding that her family could be part of the Masons. There is a name for this. When you see multiple famous people in one family, this is called pedigree collapse. This is something that is starting to become more evident with the internet and us being able to share information on social media platforms like I am right now. It is becoming more evident to us in normal society that these secret societies within the Magic Circle have been forming alliances through marriages and breeding themselves like dogs, basically. And I will be using that reference a lot, not to be derogatory, but as a way to help you understand what you are looking at.
I got to start breeding.
Please
all the
do not.
breeders out there.
Wait till you find
Slide
the
it.
right person.
Find the right person.
I'm gonna I'm gonna find a breeder, and I'm gonna get kids so that mom can love me again.
I'm gonna find a breeder, and I'm gonna get kids so that mom can love me again.
So, for example, about a few years ago, I can't remember, it's probably up here on the screen, there was a little girl who was doing a history science project and was able to figure out through genealogy that all of the U.S. presidents are related.
On the School Watch tonight, the story of a 7th grader from Salinas who claims to have made a major discovery about President Obama. She and her grandfather say that President Obama is related to all but one U.S. president.
And the youngster spent the summer, really all summer, tracing the family tree of our presidents. Her conclusion that all the presidents, with the exception of one, share the same grandfather.
Well, first we start off with George Washington at the top, and then it goes to John Adams, Thomas Jefferson.
11-year-old Bridget Dovigneau says she's made a first-of-its-kind discovery that President Obama and all the presidents before him, with the exception of one, are related and descendants of a former king of England.
No, they are all cousins,
Oh, I
and
see.
they're grandsons of John Lackland.
Dovigneau says she spent countless hours on the internet over the summer researching the lineage of our presidents, a project that started with her trying to trace her own family tree.
But I'm the first historian to do all the presidents. I'm very glad I got this done, and I think it will turn out to be a success.
The Monte Vista Christian 7th grader has written President Obama to tell him the presidents before him are his cousins. She hopes to present this family tree chart personally to the president.
If you have a child, and they 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 have a child.
Like names change.
All she's saying is this guy is the great, 25th, 27th, depending on what line it is. He created all this family. So do I believe it? Yes. It's hard, but it's true.
She was able to figure this out. This is evident because, well, you have to be of a certain bloodline to be president.
What's up, cousin? What's up?
You have to be of a certain stock, as they would say, in order for you to be, which we all are starting to realize the president is a puppet, but for you to be in that seat as president, you need to be from certain bloodlines. And that's kind of, goes back to characteristics of breeding, like dogs. I know this is pretty disturbing, but like I said, trigger warning, everything. The other thing is when you start seeing a bunch of notable people in history that are related, that's another ding, ding, ding to you. Now, I understand a correlation does not equal causation, but when you end up having a lot of these ding, ding, dings, as I say, you start leaning that way. So Taylor Swift's dad's family is from the Philadelphia area, also known as the Great Experiment or the World's Workshop. Yeah, Philadelphia is where the first World's Fair was held. Yeah, another ding, 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 right? You've seen all the weirdness around the World's Fair. It was a way to introduce new technology to the world, which is something that has been done, as you can see from the Epstein files that were just released, for a long time. And let me tell you, Taylor Swift's dad's family has had a big hand in the development of Philadelphia as well. So grandfather Archie Dean Swift II was the president of the Philadelphia Bank. Yeah, he was a president of a bank. Her great-great-grandfather, Archie Dean Swift I, also president of the bank. Yeah, let's see. When Grandma Rose married into the family, Grandma Rose Baldy, her father was also a banker. The Baldy family owned a lot of stuff in Philadelphia, let me tell you. The Baldy family was where my ding, ding, ding started to really go off. And it had to do with the fact that Baldy was an immigrant, and his father and him and brothers came over from Italy at the end of the 1800s. And when they came over, they had absolutely nothing. And it was interesting to me that immigrants during that time that came over as like fruit vendors could go in so little time from having nothing to owning a bank, owning a funeral home, owning a coal yard, owning a real estate and an insurance company, among other things. For this time, that was very interesting. And it had me looking into this family more, which thank goodness that Taylor Swift was trendy the last few years, because people were making videos on everything. And I came across a channel that made a video about her Italian bloodline, which gave me a lot of information. So Grandma Rose's father, Charles, his father, who he came over with from Italy, was Vito Baldi. And when I looked into them, it was very interesting. So the city they came from in Italy, and a lot of these words I have trouble pronouncing, and so instead of butchering them, I'm just going to stick them up on the screen for you. Apparently, Vito and Charles, now, they were poor at the time. Now, the lady in the video was able to find records that Vito was listed as a carpenter, okay? Just put a note in that. And at the time, she was also able to find records, and I even found some, like, notes online in an article that Charles was able to write. And so one of the ways they were able to save up money to go to America was by him writing letters for other peasants, which that was another ding, 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 because learning how to write and having good penmanship for a peasant in the 1800s in Italy was actually, didn't seem common. Now, according to my research, the unification of Italy happened around that time. Charles would have been learning how to write or been writing, and they were trying to educate poor people. But they said still about 90% of the peasants' population in Italy, I know I'm saying peasant, but this is what it was they were referred to as the lower class. I know. They said it's still about 90% of them still could not write. One of the things that made me ding, 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 and from what I know is that a carpenter can also be a mason. Now, one of the ways back in the day when masonry was like outlawed or people were being covert was they would hide they were a mason by saying they were a carpenter, or they were, a stone they made masonry, right? It was a way of hiding that you were in this society, but letting people who were in the know, if you knew, you knew. You see what I'm saying? I also took a look at the Baldi family crest, which was interesting because peasants didn't have family crests. But I looked at the family crest, and when I looked at the family crest, things just seemed to click to me. So I found an older Baldi family crest. You see the 3 stars there, and then there's the knight. Well, a lot of times the knight would be there as a way to signal the Knights Templars. The 3 stars, too, was another way to signal a family bloodline. And I know this because Patrick, now, just because people don't have the same last names doesn't mean they're from the same bloodline. Because everybody has married and last names have been lost. In a lot of ways, these families trace their lineage back is through the stars. Sounds weird, but it'll make sense to you the more we go on. So the 3 stars, you probably have seen this star constellation. It is the most famous star constellation in the sky, Orion. Patrick's family traces their lineage back to the same star constellation as Taylor's family, the Baldy family. People from these bloodlines tend to end up being in banking, finance, anything to do with strategy, numbers. These people are usually obsessed with numbers. I know because Patrick, he has got a doctoral degree in finance. That's what he does. He does finance working with numbers. I met him because he was my math tutor. Yeah, Taylor, obsessed with numbers. The multiple remixes of one track to stay number one, pure strategy. She can't help this. It is literally built into her to want to strategize the fuck out of everything. Look at all the Easter eggs, the number 13. Also the Easter eggs, that's something that if you grew up a Mason kid, you know. Her dad in finance. That family, finance. Great-grandfather, finance. Scott Swift's, both his paternal grandfather and maternal grandfather were bankers. I suspect that marriage was arranged through the Masons, which is something they do because I know from Patrick's family, they will nudge people together to kind of keep the bloodline or to chase Cleos that they think another bloodline has. Cleos. So the Orion constellation. That is a big deal to have that, your family attached to a star constellation. I know if you're a normal person, you're like, what that doesn't mean anything. But for these people, it does, because that constellation has been there for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. And to be attached to that in their mind is to live forever. And if you can attach yourself to a constellation like that, in this magic circle, you get certain privileges, which is probably why we've seen Taylor Swift get away with certain things in the industry that we've seen other people not get away with. In looking at the Baldy family as well, and when they came over, during that time, the poor immigrant communities in Philadelphia were not doing so well, especially in the funeral department. Around that time, a lot of poor communities were having to bury their own dead, and there was a lot of body snatching, a lot of bodies being dug up and sold to medical students for, to learn and experiments. And around that time, there was a law that came into effect that prohibited selling bodies for cash and for medical. And it would have paved the way for somebody to come in with a funeral home or a mortuary home and provide those services. And a lot of those immigrant communities, from my research, is that a lot of them did not trust a lot of people too when they moved over, because they were so used to being screwed over as immigrants. And so they felt a lot more comfortable going to other Italians, right? So the Italians felt better about going to other Italians. And so it was almost like the Baldy family came in to set up shop and almost take care of the Italian community by having a bank, by having their own mortuary, by having coal yard, by selling homes and insurance. They even had their own newspaper. They were basically running the Italian community of Philadelphia. You see, a lot of times with the Freemasons, especially the Knights Templar part of the Freemasons, and we'll get into more about how the Freemasons is structured when we get more into that probably in the next episode, because this one's already getting long, but is they will send them in as like caretakers. Now, a lot of when I was talking about, the Epstein email and the colonies, some of those colonies, the last alliance they were referring to, from what I have heard. Now, remember, this part is going to be like me and you are sitting at the table, and it's after dinner, and we're having a cup of coffee or something, and we're talking, and I'm telling you something I know. I don't know how you're going to be able to verify this part, so take it for what it is. A lot of this is just me telling you, but I ain't no expert. You see what I'm saying? It's my experience with some facts and things that can be verified on the internet, like Taylor Swift actually having a grandfather being in banking and actually, being related to royalty and Marilyn Monroe and Princess Diana. Okay, so these colonies, they'll do a lot of things and it'll be on different levels. And I guess part of their culture is they see themselves as, like you've heard, watchers or helpers of humanity. And we can get into more of that later. So this will be echoed throughout some of the other families. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what's that have to do with Epstein? Well, not all the families are good, okay? And not all of the families in the magic circle, like I've said, are in the Masons, because there are multiple societies in this magic circle. So some of them are trying to do good, and then some of them are just trying to take advantage of humanity because they see themselves as a different. When they see themselves as a different species, they see themselves as better or being entitled to Earth. So these colonies will have tentacles out into our civilization so that they can be the helpers or watchers of humanity. Some of those tentacle organizations will be the Masons, for example. Specifically in the Masons, there's different, like once you become a Mason, you can then join smaller Mason groups within the Masons. They got the Shriners. You've seen Shriners Hospital. That's where that comes from. Knights Templar, that is also another group within the Freemasons. Another one, the Scottish Rite, and that's the one typically most people know that goes to the 33rd level, which Patrick's grandfather, before he decided he didn't want to be a part of the Masons anymore, he told us he did make it to the 33rd level. But when you're a family, when you're a part of the family, it's easier to get to that 33rd. They almost kind of skip you up there. And not everybody makes it to the real 33rd level. Now, if you're one of these families and you make it to the 33rd level, you get to learn a lot about these colonies. You get to learn a lot more about real symbolism. You get to learn a lot more about the constellations and the real history of the world. You get told how this stuff is actually true. And so a lot of those people who make it past that level do get to have communication with some of these colonies, as long as they're not going to out them and keep them protected, from my understanding. And that's how these colonies will have tentacles into the CIA or tentacles into the Navy. And it looks like the Navy or the military is doing a black book project. They are, but it's because there's people in that project who are related to people that live in this colony. And they're kind of like, a little tentacle out into the world. And sometimes these people will have an idea for an invention or, an idea of how to do something. And it's really not their idea. It's really coming from the colony, if you know what I'm saying. So for whatever reason, this, that, or the other, there will be a tentacle from these colonies. Whether somebody from the colony has decided to leave and join regular society to be a tentacle, or somebody who is a part of one of these secret society groups like the Freemasons made it up high enough to where they could be trusted with this knowledge. So, and as another side note, around the 1900s as well, when a lot of people were immigrating over into America, these colonies were actually looking to refresh some of their population and become more diverse. And they were going through bloodlines to find certain people to maybe bring into their society. From what I've been told, some of these good families that believe that they were bestowed the honor of being like a watcher of humanity, there are other families that didn't get this honor. And because of something that a family member has done in the past, or families, which we'll get into, they actually have ritual pollution on their family. And so some of these families will then try to marry into these other families, hoping that their kleos will help cleanse them of their, what I said, miasma or ritual pollution that they've created in the past. And like I've said, this gets into more of the crazier stuff. Like I said, some of these families and the colonies that I know of are akin to elves. Some of the other colonies are not akin to an elf. They see them more like a vampire or some kind of hybrid minotaur type creature. And their culture has been about feeling like they have been outed from their rights to the earth. And part of their culture has become trying to literally consume other bloodline families for various reasons. And they'll have all these reasons as to why if you consume, say, a mermaid, yes, these people believe in mermaids, that if you consume a mermaid, that you take on some special thing or magic power, but then you take on a curse. So you see, there's a lot of these beliefs in this culture, and it's part of what we're going to be deep diving into as we go along. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? But here we are. I can't believe I'm fucking talking about this. I'm talking about billionaires who want to eat mermaids, elf colonies. But as you can see right here in the Epstein files, there it is. So in the world we know, you'll see the echoes of this helping humanity throughout these families. They'll start out big charities. Okay, so like you see Taylor Swift, we've always seen her through her entire career visiting sick children or donating money to the sick. That is something that is very much in the Knights Templar is charity, or in the Masons is charity. Helping people out by giving them, if you can, life-changing money, like how she would give the big bonuses to her dancers. That's a part of their culture, is a very much take care of your own, even if it's take care of your own at any cost. Another thing we'll get into eventually. Got a lot to get into. So one of the examples I can give you is Patrick's family during the Depression. Banks didn't have any money, right? Which is where the Baldi family lost the Bank of Italy. The Baldi family started the Bank of Italy in Philadelphia, and they lost their bank during the 1920s Great Depression crash. So during this time, a lot of people just did not have money, even the banks. Well, one of the things Patrick's family did was loan money to another family so that they could start a olive business. And they had this olive canning business for years. And it created like a friendship between the families, which is something that is a part of this culture too, is called guest friendship. And it's something that you'll see in the Iliad as well, is that if you make a pact or exchange gifts as like friendship between one generation, it will get carried through multiple generations. And so even up until before this family, they finally closed their business, they were inviting Patrick's family over for lunches and things and to tour. And they were always giving us free olives and things as a thank you from what happened generations previously. One way that these families can screw up their kleos and turn it into miasma is the mishandling of certain things. Now, I found a book online that explains a lot about miasma and ritual pollution by Robert Parker. Now, in this book, it goes over a lot about how if you mess with corpses or burying the dead the wrong way, you can gain miasma that way. Well, as we know, the Baldi family was in the mortuary business. They were also in the banking business. Now, as the Depression hit the country, the U.S., the Baldi family banking business didn't do so well. It took a hit. The Bank of Italy took a big hit, and people were actually having trouble getting their money out of the bank. I suspect because of the timing that this family was not doing so well. And also at the time, Charles Baldi was a fascist and a big supporter of Mussolini. He even had a boom boom thrown through the window of his house. So this family, even though they were probably sent over to help take care of the Italian community, you can see wasn't actually doing what they were supposed to and wasn't cultivating any kleos. They were actually cultivating miasma. Another way to cultivate miasma is by sacrificing your children. And we'll be talking about this. There's a lot of ways in these societies that they sacrifice their children. And it doesn't always have to be by ending them. It can also be by dedicating them in various ways. One of the ways you can dedicate your daughter or son is by marrying them off in a strategic marriage. And they see it like a business deal, like a strategy, right? It's really weird, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Everybody wants to say that Taylor Swift's song, But Daddy, I Love Him lyrics is really about her fans. It's not. I could bet money on that is actually about her daddy. Because see, Daddy's parents, Rose and Archie, I'm pretty sure that marriage was arranged. That marriage was arranged because the Baldi family wasn't doing so well. The Swift family was pulling through with the Bank of Philadelphia, and they had kleos. They were looking pretty good. So marrying Grandma Rose off was a good business deal for the Baldis. Now, one thing a lot of these billionaires and these secret societies have gotten completely wrong is that dedicating your child to the cult, to the society, to the culture, even though it's going to make your child rich and they're selling you on it's going to give them an easy life, is actually a form of sacrificing your child. And from what I have been learning, because while I've been not vlogging and stuff, I've kind of been in esoteric school, is that to sacrifice, and the way that the good people in these societies see it as, is to sacrifice potential is a big no-no. And a child is potential. They're positive potential for the planet, for Earth, for our society, for humanity. And that when you sacrifice the potential of that child for your own glory as a father or a mother, this causes generational miasma, generational ritual pollution. And you can even look at it as this way if you want to not look at it in a hokey way, but manipulating your child into being in an arranged marriage or relationship is going to cause a kind of trauma that's going to ripple through multiple generations. I don't need to explain all the reasons why. This is also why I suspect that Travis and Taylor, they are in an arranged marriage. They want them to get married because of the Kelsey family and what it'll do for the Swift family. And I've not looked into Travis Kelsey's family yet, but I am suspecting that is why her dad and her mother, per what we heard in the new Eras docs over on Disney Plus, they set her up with Travis. After the whole Maddie Healy, whatever happened there didn't work out. Like I said before, I suspect that those lyrics, But Daddy, I Love Him, is really about her daddy. Because Daddy Swift, Scott Swift, did not want her to be with Maddie. It's weird that when you are not in these cultures, it's weird to try and understand why somebody would not want their daughter to date somebody else. And honestly, in looking at everything and what I know, I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Swift had a hand in Maddie Healy ghosting Taylor. I'm going to repeat that. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Swift did some shenanigans on the backside where Taylor didn't know, because I'm suspecting that there's a lot that Taylor doesn't know. Like Scott said in his ranting email, he said his wife at the time, Andrea, didn't know where the bills got paid. That's a form of control, and I suspect He has that control over his daughter, even though she's in her 30s and is technically a billionaire. I suspect that it on paper is Taylor Swift's money, but it is not her money because Scott Swift is the one who has the control. And that's why we're seeing this whole branding of the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce relationship. It's all on the Scott Swift train. The train that he thinks is taking the family towards Kleos, when really it's actually taking the family towards generational miasma, ritual pollution. And so we're going to continue on this train into the past on the next episode because this has gotten to be a lot so far. But next time we will continue on with the Swift family line, and we will be continuing on into England, Scotland, Ireland, Greece, and Egypt. Yes, we will be traveling biblical lines back to the Exodus because this is what these billionaires believe. They believe they're the descendants of these magical pharaohs. Tutankhamun, Akhenaten, Ra. It does get way more complicated, but your head's probably spinning enough as it is. So as always, I want you to remember that even if you're like me and you don't have a star constellation or a family crest, it doesn't fucking matter because I gave you all these stars. Yes, all these stars are yours because I gave them to you because you are worth all the stars in the universe. They're yours. Fuck one constellation. You got them all, baby. They're all yours because over here, we're creating Kleos. We're creating Kleos together because it's not just about one of us or one family. It's about all of us. And so all of us are going to be moving forward together. I love you guys. Stay safe out there because shit is happening and changing in the world. And I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can with more content.
Problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you. You know, a lot of people don't have a good generalized approach to problem solving. They're not thorough, don't consider all the possibilities, prepare themselves with the right information. If you can develop a kind of generalized approach to problem solving, it's surprising how it helps you in anything.
I don't think. I know.
Every 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.